Good evening. Welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting of the Livonia Public Schools Board of Education, August 10th, 2015. The type of meeting that we're having tonight is, as I said, a Committee of the Whole meeting. What that means is this is a meeting where we will discuss several items. There will be a lot of discussion on some questions and answers, perhaps requests to the administration for further information. However, there will be no votes taken at this meeting. Items at this meeting will either be referred for further discussion at another meeting or sent to the next general meeting where they will be voted upon. So there will be no votes taken tonight. Our agendas can be found on the web at www.livoniapublicschools.org. If you hover over the school board tab, you can drop down to the agendas and follow along this evening. If you're here with us this evening and you'd like an agenda, you can find one on the table or the counter just outside the room and follow along. The first item on our agenda tonight is audience communications, and I do have one blue slip from Mrs. Kathleen Pilger. Kathleen, would you like to join us?
I would love to. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you this evening?
Doing great, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great as well. I haven't been here in a long, long time, so it's nice to come back and visit for once. But I'm coming back tonight, instead of coming as a school volunteer or PTA volunteer, I'm coming tonight from Mead Historical Park. I'm a historic preservation commissioner over there, and we have the circus coming to town tomorrow. So I came to talk to you guys for a couple of minutes about the circus because I think this is a good opportunity for kids and for families to do a family event. But in particular, it's tomorrow morning that I really want to let everybody know about. I have one list. Thanks. The circus is tomorrow night at 4:30 and 7:30, and that's going to be a wonderful event. And of course, there's tickets for that. But the thing that I really want to talk to families about tonight is the fact that tomorrow morning there's a free event that I think is very educational for kids and families. At 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, they're going to raise the big top. That's always been a tradition to come to watch the big top. It was always a small town thing, come and see the big top raised. But in addition, there will be some of the performers there to talk to the families, and they're going to bring the tiger out, and they're going to have a tiger talk. And as we all know, tigers are very endangered. Tigers, there's more tigers in captivity than there are in the wild. So this is a great chance for families to come and learn about the tigers and get educated about what circuses do and why they're preserving this way of life. So it's free. It's a good event, something to do in the summertime. So I'd really like you to all come out and visit Mead Park. And of course, if you're not able to come tomorrow, come on a weekend and come see us. I'd love to have everybody come and see us.
Sounds great.
Oh, and thank you, by the way, to the school board for letting everybody know about the one-room schoolhouses last spring. We had a wonderful turnout, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself with all the Livonia school students. Couldn't have been nicer. I had the absolute best time with our school groups last spring.
Great.
So, thanks much.
Thank you.
If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. And each one of the school board members received one of the flyers that you just referred to.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just as a piece of information, Mrs. Bonfield is not able to be with us this evening. The rest of the board is in attendance. And I'd like to also bring to everyone's attention that this is our first official meeting with Mrs. Oquist as our interim superintendent. So we will have a little more pomp and circumstances and official welcoming for you at our next general meeting, where it's a little bit more formal, but welcome. We are thrilled to have you.
Thank you. It's certainly my pleasure to be here, Mrs. Burton.
As an update on our superintendent search, I do intend on giving the community an update at the beginning of each one of our meetings. It is a very serious responsibility that this board does take. As most folks know who are following the school board or the school district, Dr. Liapa was selected recently as the new superintendent of Wayne Risa, so he will be the superintendent over 33 school districts, including Livonia Public Schools. That does leave the burden of responsibility on the school board to select the new superintendent. The board did decide to utilize a search firm. We have interviewed 6 firms and selected MLI, which is Michigan Leadership Institute, to lead us through the process. We've met as a board with MLI, developed a calendar for our procedure, MLI over the last couple of weeks has met with various focus groups and an open staff meeting and an open committee meeting, or community meeting, to develop a profile of exactly what our community as a whole is looking for in a superintendent. Along this line, we also have a button on the front page of our website, which is pretty prominent, that says "Talk to Us." So if you'd like to share any thoughts on the school district or the superintendent and what we should be looking for, we would welcome you to communicate with us via the Talk to Us button. The comments that you leave on that website will go directly to MLI, so they will be assimilated with the other comments from the community, so we can put a whole profile together and make sure that we're consistently looking for the same kind of individual across the board. The job has officially been posted. Applications are being accepted for the position of superintendent through August 28th, and they again will go directly to MLI. We have set aside the month of September for interviews and further follow-up for candidates. If we do get the desired quality of candidates, we will proceed from that point. If we do not have the quality of candidates, not talking about quantity, but if we are not looking at the quality that we are looking for, we will stop the process and begin over again. If we do have the desired quality of candidates, we will be interviewing in September, and we hope to have a new superintendent seated sometime during the month of October. Again, the board does take this responsibility very seriously. The board and/or the search firms are working weekly on this process, and we are very, very confident that we will have a strong superintendent in place in the near future. In the meantime, as we said, we are thrilled that Mrs. Oquist is willing and very able to step in and lead us as our interim superintendent.
Thank you, President Burton.
The next item on our agenda is item 3, the Finance Committee, and we'll turn this over to Mrs. Jarvis.
Thank you, President Burton. We have 2 items on the Finance Committee agenda for tonight. The first one is the establishment of the 2015-2016 tuition rate, for which we'll turn to Ms. Lisa Abbey.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
We come to you every year at this time to talk about the tuition rate. First, I'll explain to you what it's calculated for, and then we'll talk about how it's calculated. So, as you know, generally we have public school, and we're funded from the state on a per student basis. But there are occasions sometimes, and allowed in the board policy, where we have students attending Livonia Public Schools on a tuition basis. Typically, this will happen when we have a student who moves out of the district late in their junior year or early in their senior year, and they ask to be able to stay and finish their school studies and graduate from Livonia Public Schools. In that case, at the superintendent's discretion, your board policy allows for her to make an exception and allow for that, and in which case we then bill the student for a part. If their foundation allowance is less than what our foundation allowance is, we're allowed to bill for part of the year for tuition. If we have 1 student a year, that's an unusual year. We didn't have any students last year. I think we had 1 the year before. But the state does provide a mandated calculation for how to do that, how we come up with that tuition rate. That's not our decision on how to come up with that. The calculation is based on our operating expenses and our per pupils. So it comes up with a per pupil amount. And then the Board of Education is asked to adopt it. And then if we do have that occasion during the year, we're prepared to state what our tuition rate would be, and students then would be allowed to make their decisions if they want to stay or not. So this is very perfunctory. We bring this to you every year. We did do the calculations this year. You have that information in your packet today. And the calculation for 15-16 was $9,899. It was $9,601 last year, so a slight increase. Again, we didn't have any students last year, but we do ask you to adopt the rate just so that we're prepared for the year. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from Ms. Abbey?
Not on this one. We've typically put
Mr.
this
Johnson.
on consent.
Somebody's got to ask a question. Does the student pay that tuition?
The family pays it, correct?
Family pays it. And the calculation is done only once a year?
Yes.
There aren't any updates?
No, and then it's actually based on, because we haven't finalized last year 14-15 expenditures, it's actually based on the previous year 13-14 financial information database.
Okay.
It's very prescribed too. You fill in this line, this line, this line, and calculate and So everyone has the same process based on their expenditures, that district's expenditures.
All right, thanks.
President
Just
Burton.
a follow-up to Mr. Johnson's question. The student or their family would pay the difference between their
Right.
their foundation allowance in the district in which they reside.
Right.
And this dollar figure,
Right.
correct?
Right.
If there is
And for part of a semester, or for
Okay.
days in a year, or we would prorate it for when they're actually here.
Okay. Right.
It's not a big budget line item.
Any other questions?
Consent agenda?
That'd be fine.
I would think,
We
yep.
certainly have.
Thank you, Ms. Abby.
Mm-hmm.
The next item under the Finance Committee is the approval to add Interim Superintendent Oquist as an authorized signee for the LPS accounts with Fifth Third Bank. And again, we'll turn to Ms. Abby.
Thank you. Pretty straightforward. Again, as we're transitioning, there are some documents that Mrs. Oquist will need to sign, and we're going to probably bring a couple of these to you over the next couple of months. One of those is with Fifth Third Bank. You may recall that you authorized Fifth Third Bank. They're both our checking and investment financial institution for the 2013 bond, and they do require 2 signatures on documents. That's typically been the business office and the superintendent's office. The Fifth Third actually requires 2 of 3. The third person is Nick Armeligus, our administrator of finance. So we always have 2 people available to sign those documents. So we would like to add Mrs. Oquist, our interim superintendent, is available to sign those documents, and that provides that check and balance on those accounts, so that we always have 2 signatures.
Any questions or comments?
And what we would have is a resolution that we would adopt at the regular board meeting.
Regular agenda.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Abby.
Thank you very much.
President Burton, that is the Finance Committee's report for this evening.
The next item on our agenda is item 4, Building and Site, and we will turn that over to Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, President Burton. We have 2 items on building and site tonight, and the first is approval of bids for traffic signal and wheelchair lift for Franklin High, 2013 bond. We all should have gotten some handouts from Ms. Abby, so I'll turn it over to her.
Thank you very much. Again, Paul Terrio from Plant Moran Cressa is here to go over the details, but you may recall that when we had the bid results for Franklin High School for the auditorium and the classroom renovations, there were 2 items that we didn't receive sufficient coverage of bids, so we went back out to bid. Those are the 2 items you have in front of you today, the traffic signal and the wheelchair lift, which will be in the auditorium. We did get 2 bids for each of those, so that's not untypical for these particular items. There just aren't a lot of vendors for these items. They're very specific products that we're bringing in. We are recommending the low bidder for each of those areas, and I'm going to let Paul talk to you a little bit about the process and where we are, budget to actual, although I'll give you a hint, we're in good shape, so. Hates when I take away his fun stuff. But. And then also, Paul, after that, would like to talk about the bond and an update, so the next items, just in case he just jumps into it.
So thank you for the invitation to be here. As Ms. Abby mentioned, we had originally awarded contracts back in late March for Franklin. At that time, we had 3 bid divisions that were not included. The 2 we're bringing forward tonight, and then the metal panels, which we brought forward a couple of months ago. So these are the last 2 bid awards to close up the Franklin project. We put proposals back out on the street really because we weren't happy with the coverage we had on the list. We only had 1 bid, and we wanted to have at least 2. Unfortunately, again, there are not a lot of firms that provide those lifts, so we only had 2 bids this time. And then also the intersection, the street light out at the intersection. We've been having a lot of meetings with Wayne County trying to finalize that design, which I'll get to in a minute. Some other issues going on there, but we finally did get what we thought was close enough direction to actually bid it out, and so we had 2 bids on that as well. Those 2 contracts total right around $193,000. We'd be looking, as we have before, to write prime contracts based on the template that your attorney has put together. We'd have George Ock write those up. Lisa and I will review them, and then we would award those contracts and get those guys going. That work doesn't really happen until next year, so it's not mission critical per se, but we'll be good to get the last bid packages awarded so we can kind of put the budget to that. So there's a cover letter in here that just kind of gives an overview of the dates. Bids were due on July 29th. The second or third page is actually the budget summary. So this is just slightly revised by about $193,000 from what you saw the last time. As you know, we were a little bit over budget at Franklin. But we do have a pretty healthy contingency there, and we're hoping that we can keep a lot of that contingency for next year, and hopefully absorb some of these costs as they come up. So usually the hardest part is getting out of the ground with the new addition. So once we get out of the ground, we'll be able to breathe a sigh of relief. So far, it looks like the soils are pretty good over there. We've had some utilities we had to relocate, some issues with consumers in Edison, but actually a lot of those have won in our favor. We've had some pretty healthy credits come back our way as we were able to do things a little bit more efficiently. So we're hoping that trend continues for at least a little while longer.
Always.
Once we get into the winter, that's another story with how harsh and soon the winter comes. I hate to say that, it's August, I realize. I hate to ruin everybody's day, but we're already looking ahead to that, because if it's like the last two winters that we had, there's gonna be some additional costs for winter protection and heat and things like that, so. But as far as these awards go, I think we're in good shape, and I'm glad that we put them back out just to make sure we had competitive bidding situations.
Okay, any questions, comments? Mrs. McDonald?
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Paul, is there, and I clarify this for me because I don't know, the traffic signal, wouldn't that be something that Franklin, or that Wayne County should actually be paying for instead of us? I mean.
Do you want my honest opinion?
Yeah.
What happens in situations like this is that when you're doing work that affects the right-of-way, it gets a little bit dicey about what you have to do, what does the county want done because it's a county road? What does the district want to do? What's in the district's best interest? There's some interesting intersections with deceleration lanes, and how does, because you have a couple of drives that are very close together, how do people exit and enter the site, and what's the safest way to do that? So even though it's a county road, and you would think that it would be their jurisdiction to pay for it, because we're changing it, and this is probably the one time that it's going to change in the next 30 years, they kind of, I hate to say, use this as an excuse to have us pay for their renovations that they'd like to see done to the road. So we had quite a few meetings down there to try to talk through our position versus what they wanted. We've actually made a lot of good headway. The costs were considerably higher than they ended up being. Not so much with the traffic signal, but with the road improvements, with the deceleration and acceleration lanes, with how everything was configured, with whether it was concrete or asphalt, and some of the drainage at the front. So we've come a long way. We're still not quite there yet, but I think we've made some good headway with the county, and I think they've been pretty fair overall.
Do you want to give just
assuming
a
that we get
brief update where we are with
Yeah,
Franklin?
so like anything, construction is, there's always problems, right? If there wasn't,
Be easy
it'd
or
be too
something.
easy, right? So we have had some issues with the county. As I mentioned, we've been down there on several occasions going over the right-of-way work, which has really been the big sticking point. How the stormwater drains off and into the county sewer and city sewer and storm. How traffic exits and enters the site, having to do with the acceleration, deceleration, having to do with the traffic light, and how everything's configured. The county has still not approved our drawings, even though they were submitted many, many months ago. We've been down there on several occasions to talk through that with them. And it's gotten to the point now where we still don't have, believe it or not, a building permit for Franklin High School, even though we've been renovating it all summer, even though we are getting ready to put footings in the ground. Something that we've been aware of, but we've been working with the county and trying to get them to approve it. The city has approved our plans, contingent upon the county's approval. The state has approved them, contingent upon the county signing off. And the inspectors have been coming out and reviewing things for us, but as of last week, they are done coming out and reviewing anything and approving anything. So while we're still inside the building doing renovation work, as far as the new footings go and work on the addition, we're pretty much at a stop. So
And we hope to have that resolved this week.
we're hoping to have it resolved tomorrow. We tried to get down there today and have a meeting. We were unsuccessful with that. I'm going to actually go down there tomorrow and see if I can stir the pot a little bit and get things unstuck. So it's unfortunate that it's come to this, but it's kind of where we're at. It's not the first time it's ever happened, but it's a little bit late in the year if we were having this discussion in June, I wouldn't be as worried. It's August, so I'm a little bit more concerned, so I'm going to go down there tomorrow and see what I can do. So.
Too busy with the jail?
They are actually very behind on their permitting process, just in general.
The frustrating thing is that the issues they have are all in the right-of-way, has nothing to do with the renovation, has nothing to do with the building addition. It's the right-of-way work out on the street, which we're not even doing till next year. So
And that's
we're
holding
trying-
everything up?
Yes. So what we're trying to do is to get them to approve it contingent upon finalizing whatever issues they have out there so that we can keep going with the construction project, but we haven't been successful yet.
I have one more question.
So I hope to have an update later in the week.
Can we tap our county commissioner to see if they can't possibly, or she can't give us some assistance on this?
If we don't get it resolved this week, I think we need to do that. I mean, we need to pull out whatever stops we have to, because, to be honest, the renovation can't really stop. It has to keep going, because there's just not enough time left. The addition, every day we wait now is a day that we're gonna be working in December, when it's gonna be
Right.
cold and windy and snowy, so, and it's gonna cost a lot more to do work, but, at the end of the year than it is now, so. I'm hoping we can get it resolved tomorrow, and that's all I really know at the moment, other than it didn't get resolved today, so.
And then we'll certainly update you.
Okay, appreciate it. Any other questions or comments? President Burton.
Regarding the cost of the light, I would love to have the county pay for that, but if we need to pay for it, we need to pay for it. And I'm grateful that the county is allowing us to do it, because I know for years this district has worked with the county to try to get their permission, because without their permission, we can't put a light there, and we've known that there's a need for it. So if our citizens were generous enough to approve a bond, while I would like to have the county pay for anything that they can, I'm just grateful that the county is allowing us to put in that light. And for the safety of our students going in and out of that building every day, I'm glad that we've got the opportunity to put it in, even if it does come at our cost. Also, for the benefit of the public who may not know all of the roles that Cressa plays, going down to the county and dealing with this and fighting with them however many times you need to get the proper permits are one of the reasons that we hire an owner's rep, because we simply don't have enough manpower in our central office to do that kind of work, and I want to thank you for that.
No problem. And Ms. Abby's been down there with us a couple of occasions, so it takes the whole team to get things done.
I'm sure,
sometimes.
yep. And
It's
then
a
there-
process.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. Regular,
Regular
yes.
agenda?
Mhm.
Yes. That'll move us to 4B, summer update on bond
Good
projects.
stuff.
And we have
Yeah.
movies.
So we've been getting weekly updates from, I was going to start with the elementary schools, but we've been getting weekly updates from McCarthy and Smith, just kind of a slideshow to show some of the progress that's been going on at the elementary school. So I don't have the clicker, I'll just speak about this. So this is Kennedy. So we thought we'd have an update. So this is the new main front entrance. You can see we've got new windows going in along the left there, new metal fascia panels. We've got the new entrance, all the concrete work that's going in. We're doing the colored concrete last week and this week, sorry, as well as the new archway. They've still got a little bit of concrete to pour there and then some landscaping to do. But the project's been coming along very well. We also have there is a new sign that's going to be going out there. We've been taking some extra time to make sure that it's exactly the way we want it, so that might not be done for the start of school. But the whole main entrance, other than the building sign, will be. This is one of the classrooms, so you can see somebody finally picked a color that wasn't blue. We got orange and some browns over there. We got some new casework, new unit ventilator, ceilings, lights. The buildings are actually in pretty good shape. Sorry.
I don't see ceilings, I see lights. Do you
Well, we
see
got ceiling grid. Ceiling grid, right, that's the important
Just
thing.
want you to know, they're not gonna look like that when they're done.
We really got into the buildings a little bit earlier this year, and it did pay big dividends getting in there on second shift and doing a lot of this work. So we're a little bit farther ahead, and we have an extra week this summer. So this is the new main office, which is really going to change the way this building is exited and entered. We got a secure vestibule going on in front there. We've kind of taken over part of the lobby space to do that. So I think it's going to feel quite a bit different. Sorry. We still have some doors to put in and some drywall to do, but you can kind of get an idea of it taking shape. This is just a corridor. You can see some of the casework that's being stored there, some ceiling tiles that are going up shortly. This is just kind of a 2-week look ahead of all the things that are going to be going on over the next couple of weeks. The classrooms are actually in great shape. Not worried about those at all. The main office is probably the furthest, not behind, but probably the last thing that's going to get done just because of all the new walls and things like that. Do we only have Kennedy?
No, it's a separate slideshow.
Oh,
You just
sorry.
gotta click on the other one. It should be right on the desktop there.
Yep, here's Hayes. So here's the front of Roosevelt. Again, you can see the new entryway going in, the brick piers, the lights, the new concrete being poured, and all the new windows going in. Those windows really needed to be replaced.
Paul, go back on that one a second. I
Sure.
don't know if you, board members, if you remember, that's the one that had like those red rust-colored poles for that. Those, in the front, those will all be brick encased, so those will really look nice.
Yeah, that really does change the
That
look of the
really
building
changed the front of that look.
at the middle schools as well. This is some of the flooring going down in the corridors.
I know, isn't that sharp? So in Hayes, if you
So-
remember that, if you look at that brown soffit on the top, that's where they had those bright colored tiles that sort of dated the building. I mean, they were nice in their time, but that is just so much more modern looking now, just much, much more up to date with that.
We also had some stone panels that were underneath the windows that we replaced with the new storefront system with some metal panels, so those are a lot cleaner look, a lot better look.
And same thing in the front, we had the peeling metal poles, and Paul, maybe you can just point out on the right-hand side there.
Yep, all these columns.
All those columns were just metal poles, and so they've been wrapped in the brick with the glazed top, and it really has transformed the front of Hayes Elementary.
We got some new doorways going in, that's another classroom on the right there, so back to the blues, but same thing, new electrical and data for the projection systems, for the teacher computers, new vertical unit ventilators, ductwork. This is just some blow-ups of the same thing. You can see they're already painting down the corridors, which is a good sign, because that's one of the last things that usually happens. We've got new doors, new casework, new marker boards, tack boards, so it's really coming along great. A lot of electrical work, obviously, and a lot of control work behind the scenes to make everything run. Generators are set and being started up, I believe, this week, so that's a good sign, too. The electrical services have been done as well. You can see some of the soffits and new mechanical units. This is in the office over at Hayes. And that's the new main entrance there. They don't have all the glass in yet, but you can see the new framing on the left there, and then the new entryway sign in piers. And then these are just some of the things going on over the next 2 weeks at Roosevelt, all the architectural, electrical, and mechanical work. There is a lot of work left to be done, but the buildings are in pretty good shape for the time of the year. And this is Hayes. So at this point, it's really starting to be a dance of getting everybody finished up and out of the buildings, getting all the inspections done. We've got fire marshal inspections on the calendar for the 21st, 24th, and 25th, I believe. So over those 2 weeks, we'll have fire marshal through, building inspectors, electrical, mechanical inspections, and really be getting cleaned up and out of the way so that the custodial crews and maintenance crews can come in and clean everything up. And then we can bring the movers back in, move everybody back in, and be ready for the Wednesday before Labor Day. So it's really, there's a lot of construction work left to be done, but it's really the coordination that gets tricky at this time of year, so.
And Riley and Emerson are on schedule also.
Yep.
And-
The elementary schools, I was just gonna mention, we don't have too many issues. Last year, we had a couple things that caused us problems in the fall. I don't think we're gonna have anything really. There's, some of the casework slipped a little bit, but it should be here in plenty of time to get it installed. Emerson and Riley are in great shape as well. The classrooms already have floor tile down, and some of it's even already waxed and cleaned up, so that's great news. The corridors there, if you remember, we ripped out all the old lockers that formed the walls, so we had to build new masonry, and that's been a pretty big challenge, but a lot of that's wrapped up as well. The biggest problem at Emerson and Riley has really been the lockers. I think I mentioned earlier this year that there's really only 3 locker suppliers, and one of them went out of business, which really has overloaded the other 2, so we're hoping to still have lockers in time for the start of school. The last ship dates we had, just to keep you completely in the loop, is that we should have corridor lockers the week of 8/25 for Emerson, which is way too close, but it is what it is. And then the following week, we'll have the locker room lockers for Emerson, which aren't quite as critical, but we'll be working with the district to make sure we get all the locker combinations in their hands so they can pass them out to students and things like that, which you'd want to have done a couple weeks ahead of time. We're going to be kind of at the last 11th hour there, so. Riley, the good news is those have shipped, so we should have lockers at Riley, even though the Emerson ones we probably would have wanted first.
Right.
Of course, it went the other way, so. Again, fire marshal inspection, punch list inspections, we're getting nailed down. All the final commissioning on the HVAC equipment, that's getting scheduled, so we're really in pretty good shape. And then at Franklin, we obviously touched on the big issue with Wayne County, which we're working on. The other issue over there is the windows. We have all the storefront framing in and the glass in. What we don't have are the sliding windows, the egress windows. So right now, those are temporarily closed off. We're hoping that we're going to get those in time. It's been a little bit dicey. We've leaned on the manufacturer quite a bit. We actually threatened to take their contract away and go with somebody else, which got their attention, as you would expect. But right now, the windows are supposed to ship 8/28. Which is, again, a little bit too close, but they're a pretty simple installation because the frame is already in. It's really just slide them in, pop them in, tighten a couple screws, and you're done. So we've been assured that they'll do whatever
So
it takes to get
everyone,
those
your
done.
screwdriver's out and August 8th.
Ready to go.
Pop them out, pop them in, couple screws.
If for some reason that order doesn't ship, we have a backup plan to put vinyl windows in or some other temporary measure to get school open. But, we bid these things out pretty early in the year. We took a lot of time and energy to get submittals in and things approved and ordered. And, if 80 things got ordered on time, there's always one that seems that causes us a little bit of grief. So it's not out of the ordinary for construction. It's just a little painful this time of year. So. But really things are in good shape. I mean, if you go over to Franklin, again, you'll see floor tile going down, ceiling grid going up, new lights in, mechanical units in. I'm really pretty happy with where we are with all the buildings right now. So.
Excellent. Any questions or comments? Mrs. Jarvis?
Thank you. Mr. Terrio, last year when we had the renovations done, some of the teachers were not able to get into their renovated classrooms until right before school started. Do you think we'll have more lead time this year?
What we've worked through this year is that I believe the teachers are all in PD the Monday and Tuesday, the week before Labor Day. So this year, what we're trying to do is get them into the buildings on Wednesday, which gives them Wednesday and Thursday. I think Friday's a holiday. But they'll have Wednesday and Thursday to move back in. And I should say unpack. We'll have everything moved for them. We're also going to have crews and movers on site to help them rearrange furniture, move anything big that they want to put somewhere else, and just generally help out, with things that they don't want anymore that need to be discarded or things that need to go to a different classroom, which last year, that seemed to make a big difference for everybody once we brought those crews out. So we're going to try to do that again.
So just to clarify, I don't want any of our own staff to misunderstand, Wednesday is also a professional development day. However, teachers are able to access their classrooms on that Wednesday, September 2nd. And then Thursday is a work day, so they're not in professional development at all. So they'll have that entire Thursday, and then they have the option of being compensated to work a half a day on Friday, which the building is normally closed, we will have them open. And certainly for those schools, we've also already planned for a delayed open house, et cetera, so teachers can really just concentrate on having their instructional materials ready and worry about the full setup of the classroom and things like that, not until later in the fall.
Wonderful, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Did we want to talk about
Sure,
the...
I can mention that if you'd like.
Okay, why don't we, because last year we took a tour, and Ms. Alquist and I have talked about it, and we have some ideas.
Yes, we'd like to offer the board the opportunity, if you'd be so inclined to do so, to visit on August 24th, we have a study session planned, and so we would like to find out if that evening would be a good time to meet prior to the study session at Riley Upper Elementary. So you might have an opportunity to see one of our schools that has had some pretty significant renovation. Of course, as you know, there will still be things that will need to be completed and wrapped up because school actually doesn't start till September 8th. So in construction mindset, that's still a world of time. But we'd like to give you a sneak peek into Riley, and it's relatively close to the board office. So if that works for you, we can set something up, 5:30, 6 o'clock. If you want to move the study session back a bit, certainly up to you. We'd be happy to accommodate that. But we would like the opportunity to take you over to visit.
Can I ever,
Thoughts? Yes.
I can do any time.
Well, 5:30 is pushing it for me, so if we could give me a little leeway.
Move it back to
Okay.
6.
Yeah, 6 would be better for me.
Sure.
If that's okay
Does
with
that work for
everyone
everybody?
else.
That's fine.
That'll work,
So-
we can
Push
just
the
move
study
the
session back a little
to
bit?
Yep,
seven.
then we can do,
Seven.
yeah, then maybe 7
7
o'clock,
o'clock.
start of the study
Yeah.
session.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll have it cleaned up for you.
But,
Not quite done.
careful what your shoes you wear. Remember, it's a construction site.
I'll bring hard hats as well.
Oh, good. Yeah.
We were hoping hard hats were negotiable, but we understand it's a work site.
And apparently a screwdriver.
Yeah.
We're there, President Burton.
Okay. If there's nothing else, then that concludes building and site, President Burton.
And surprisingly, that concludes our agenda this evening. I think this is probably one for the record books as far as a shortest study session, but frankly, it's as the summer really should be. We've just had quite a jam-packed summer. So we are at the end of our agenda, and you can tune in next Monday, August 17th, for our next regular general voting meeting. Thank you. Good evening.